All people are born into this world possessing some modicum of curse energy, but it's those born with a particularly large amount of it that can learn to manipulate their curse energy and become Jujutsu sorcerers. And within that considerably small pool of sorcerers exist those who have inherited a powerful curse technique through their bloodline, with some of these techniques being extremely desired over others. And it's those abilities that get held in high regard, resulting in the clans gaining special status amongst the Jujutsu world. Though some of these inherited abilities could become more of a curse for their users instead, permanently shaping their lives going forward. And a great example of this comes in the form of the supernatural speech-slinging sushi savant selflessly sacrificing sociability, Toge Inumaki. This video contains spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen right up to the most recent arc in the manga. If you want to avoid spoilers, you have been warned. Toge Inumaki is one of the earliest characters made for the story of Jujutsu Kaisen. Starting out as one of the main cast members in the original prologue, he later became more of a supporting role during the main series. And within the series itself, he lives as a second year at the Tokyo Jujutsu Academy and works as a semi-first grade sorcerer. And thanks to him being born from the Inomaki clan, he also inherited a special type of curse technique that is just as much of a gift to him as it is a hindrance, as it ends up restricting the way that he can communicate with the rest of the world going forward. Though, before we get too deep into that, let's understand the meaning behind his name and design. Let's start first with his design. Inumaki's design is rather interesting, as he originally started out with a look that was very similar to the future protagonist of the series, Yuji Itadori, with Akatame even including in the re-release of Volume 0 a little diagram showing the differences between the two characters. Now, Akatame might have gone for this type of character design to suggest to the readers that Toge was a lot more athletic than he appears at first glance, but given that later Akatame had to add that to his character bio, I'm not sure if that stuck too well. Along with this, Inomaki was given a large collar to cover up his mouth in order to do two things. Firstly, muffle his speech, and hopefully reduce any of the effects that his curse technique might have if it happened to accidentally go off, as well as hide his clan's tattoos, which helps keep his attack method a secret so that he can at least get in a surprise attack if need be. Though, eventually, when the series got greenlit, and Akatame had to design more characters, they ended up changing Inumaki's design, giving them a much more pretty boy appearance, smoothing or rounding out their hair, but keeping the collar and tattoo shape. And this was obviously done to remove any of the confusion between Inomaki and Itadori. Now, the name Toge Inumaki, like most names in the series, holds with it a special meaning that relates to the character. Starting first with the family name, this being Inumaki, which is comprised of the characters for Inu, which means dog, though interestingly, the specific character used for his name isn't the common version of Inu. Instead, it's an alternate one that tends to mean smaller or younger dog, and this seems to be done for two reasons. Firstly, due to the young or small relating to him still being in school, but his relation to dogs also seems to be selected to play with the term of phrase, bark louder than its bite, as his curse ability literally makes his bark into his bite. Along with this, because his ability works similar to a spoken command being issued to a dog, it's very possible that the Inu part of his character was intended to relate to that as well. But even more interesting, the Inu character that is used also is mostly used in spoken language instead of written one, and plays very well into the speaking elements of his character. Then you have the Maki portion of his name, which means roll or to ball up, and can be a common shortening for Makizushi, which is a popular preparation style for sushi, and is likely intentional as a reference to Toge's own unique vocal tick, as he speaks entirely in onigiri ingredients, as both Makizushi and rice balls are prepared in similar fashions. It's possible that the Maki is also in reference to the balling of rice for an onigiri as well, though the reason he speaks like this is to protect those around him, as he uses ingredients because they are mostly filled with harmless non-command based words. And then finally we have his given name, Toge, which is comprised of the character for thorn or splinter, though the Toge portion of his name is harmonious with the word for biting words, or words that harm, with Akutame saying specifically that he wanted a name that was comprised of words that stuck out to the listener, so I feel like this was partially intentional. And with that understood, it seems like the name was chosen to reflect the double-edged sword nature of his ability, this curse technique being known as curse speech. Curse speech is an inherited technique passed down through the Inumaki family, which is a family of sorcerers considered outlaws to the main of Jujutsu society due to the dangerous nature of their ability, though they do have enough pull within the Jujutsu world to get Toge into the Tokyo Academy on recommendations. Now, those born into the family with the ability to use this technique will bear the mark of the Inumaki family, which is referred to as the serpent's eyes and fang, with the marks appearing on the outside of the mouth being the eyes of the snake, while the tongue is marked with a symbol of fangs, which could be playing into the idiom sharp-tongued, though the symbol found on the mouth likely plays more into the oldest symbol tied to snakes, this being the messenger or spokesman of the gods, which can bring fortune to those they bless, or curses to those that displease them. Now, how curse speech works is that the user must speak aloud, usually in the form of a command. They then infuse the word with curse energy, and that grants it power to control those who hear it. This can be a simple command like stop or run away that causes the person that hears it to physically act out the order, though the commands can also be supernatural in nature, such as get crushed or explode, causing the recipient to be mutilated in a fashion that matches the nature of the command. Inomaki can even affect other sorcerers' ability with his speech by issuing commands such as return, which forces a summoned Shikigami to return to their summoner. Also, the stronger the word that is used, the more curse energy is expected from the sorcerer, and this aspect of the ability can be a double-edged sword, as using the ability will stress out the vocal cords and, more importantly, throat of the sorcerer. The reason for this is likely how speech itself works, as we exhale air and vibrate it through the air, carrying energy with it that will eventually vibrate the hairs within the ears and transfer the sound to our brains. Now, how I imagine cursed speech works mechanically is the user will enhance the exhaled air with curse energy while it's either in their throat or more specifically around their vocal cords. This intense increase in energy can have a similar effect to that of screaming and can lead to Inomaki or any other user damaging their voice when they use this ability multiple times. This idea is partly backed up by Yuta's own interpretation of the ability, where the words are infused with curse energy through a curse energy generated megaphone. Though, interestingly enough, even though it seems like the sound waves are the ones that would be carrying the curse energy to its target, the ability can still be used through non-curse tools like a cell phone or a regular microphone, which doesn't really work with how I have interpreted the speech pattern, though we have no statement on if this would weaken the effect of curse speech at all. Now, what makes curse speech difficult to master is more than just finding a way to circumvent the effects of the stress brought onto the body. That can be easily done by carrying around some cough medicine. It's actually all about controlling the spread of the energy when it's released, as an untrained curse speech user will ungracefully spread their curse energy out like a regular sound wave, resulting in it being rather ineffective in comparison to those who have honed their skills properly and can control their curse energy after it's been released. This way they don't accidentally harm themselves or worse, their allies in the process. Though, even they can slip up from time to time, and if they aren't careful, their attacks can end up being reflected back at them. Though they can partly prevent the former from happening with one simple trick, as you can reinforce your ears up to your brain with curse energy like any other part of your body, creating essentially a protective muffler that eliminates the curse energy traveling through the air from ever registering with your brain. The problem with this is, it basically means that you're likely about to spend twice as much curse energy as you would normally every time you want to use your ability. Along with this, it also means that other sorcerers can easily protect themselves from cursed speech technique as long as they know that it's coming, though having a cursed speech user somewhere hidden can be a nuisance for most other sorcerers, as the ability does travel at the speed of sound. Though where this curse technique thrives is mainly in sorcerer versus cursed spirit exorcisms, especially against hordes of weaker grade 3 or lowers, as they like to sort of swarm together. Though, like I previously mentioned, similar to how the stronger a word is, the stronger a cursed spirit is, it means that the user will need to put in more cursed energy to have any sort of effect, without feeling a severe backlash. As it seems that curses don't seem to possess the same defensive capabilities as sorcerers do when it comes to cursed speech. They just have a natural curse energy that acts as the essential barrier of entry for any curse-based attacks. To put it in simpler D&D terms, imagine that all cursed spirits have a set armor class, where sorcerers have a varying armor class based on what they want to protect and when. Now, the main inspiration for cursed speech seems to be drawing from Japanese culture, and more specifically the spiritual belief called kotodama, which is the notion that words that we speak aloud have energy or a spirit to them, and can affect the world around us. So, for say, you speak positively to those around you, then the world around you should become more positive, and vice versa. Which is sort of a already hard truth in the universe of Jujutsu Kaisen given the property of curse energy. But along with that, in Kotodama, if a group of people begin talking collectively about the same thing, they may actually begin to will it into or out of existence. And with that, I guess you now have the context to why that Yu-Gi-Oh card was called Kotodama, and why it does what it does. That's right, that's what you come here for, those hot Spell Ruler era Duel Monsters tips. That's what I'm here for. Now, Inomaki, as of the main series, has lived up to his status as a semi-grade 1 sorcerer, being able to affect even a special grade cursed spirit with his speech. Though it does come to him at a great cost to his health, I feel like the series has done a very good job at demonstrating his strength. Though, it also shows that a drawback like this, alongside how easy it would be for an informed sorcerer to counter this technique, prevents the Inomaki clan from thriving in the same vein as the Big Three clans. Though, as I've mentioned before, Inomaki's clan was considered outlaws within the Jujutsu world, according to the Jujutsu Kaisen fanbook, which is partly why cursed speech technique is such a rare thing. And I think that Akutami added this because it really helped Inomaki fit in better with his grade, narratively wise at least. Because amongst Panda, a panda who isn't a panda and is a cursed doll whose methods are a secret to the rest of the Jujutsu world, Maki, the rude and abrasive Zenin clan dropout, and Yuta, the cowardly boy whose power almost got him executed, Inomaki was lacking a Jujutsu world-specific stigma. He matched the group personality-wise by having a trait that isolated him from the rest of society, but now we know why Gojo took interest in him, as all of the second years are misfits in the Jujutsu world in different ways. Though the most unfortunate drawback to cursed speech is, as I mentioned, how casually dangerous it could be, as words and language are subject to change as years go on. Eventually, new meanings get attached to them, especially with a language like Japanese, where a single character or sound can be attributed to dozens of different meanings. Thus, cursed speech users have to heavily limit their casual vocabulary in everyday conversation. For example, Inumaki only speaks in onigiri ingredients, which, over time, those who grow close to him begin to understand his coded language. It can make it hard for him to communicate with others. Though, let's go over what we do know about it. Firstly, you have salmon, which Inomaki uses as an affirmation or to agree with something, or it's just more of him implying that he has a positive feeling about something. Then you have the opposite, fish or bonito flakes. This is how he denies something or says that he is expressing a negative feeling about something. Everything else from that point, Akutami has said it's just gibberish. Though some believe that his choice of words do have meaning in that they're tied to specific things. Though I've seen different interpretations for each ingredient, so I'm not sure if there really is anything to that. But if I were to assume, if he ever mentions tuna mayo, it's likely positive, as that's his favorite type of onigiri, and if he ever mentions fish egg, it's negative, because that's his least favorite. Though, due to his speech patterns, Inomaki found it difficult to communicate with others right away, and when he was younger, he never realized the power of his own words until after he had already brought harm to others, resulting in him likely being partially traumatized to the point that he limited his communication. This has also caused him to become somewhat of a recluse, though he often tries to look out for those he sees in a similar position to him. And this is why him and Yuta were able to bond so quickly, as they both grew up in similar situations. Though what makes Inomaki stand out to Yuta isn't just his reservation in limiting his own speech, but in how he embraces it and makes it part of his identity, taking this somewhat silly speech pattern and making it his, as Inomaki is someone who likes to play pranks on others and make others feel good, while also getting some laughs himself. He'll either scare them or mess around with them in a playful way, and when he's not exercising spirits or messing around with his friends, he also enjoys his time watching YouTube videos. And I imagine that the internet, and how it allows for near endless nonverbal communication around the world, is genuinely something that Inomaki enjoys, as it seems like it allows him to fully speak his mind without having to worry about hurting someone. Though in reality, Inomaki doesn't seem to let this hardship in life bring him down. Instead, he suffers in silence and uses his skills to help shape a better world for those around him, kinda like the practices of Kododama. Though, it is his action in helping and assisting others that brought Inomaki very close to death's door, as during the infamous Shibuya incident, Inomaki was in charge of saving civilians and managing cursed spirits in front of the Shibuya station, and while helping clear out some of those spirits, the unthinkable happened. The King of Curses awoken, and Sukuna unleashed a massive 140-meter domain that obliterated everything in its path. And in what could be considered either a great tragedy or divine intervention, Inomaki did find himself partly caught in the radius of that domain. This shredded his left arm right down to its elbow, leaving him with severe scarring all across the left side of his body. Inomaki became incapacitated from this point on, and has assumedly been put on medical leave. And so far, that's the last we've heard of him, though his impact on his friends remained consistent, as Yuta still utilizes his abilities even right up until the most recent arc, even going so far to use the Serpent and Fang tattoo instead of manifesting an object like before. And judging by some statements from Akatame regarding Inomaki, it seems like he hasn't been fully fleshed out yet to the readers, and I can bet that we'll definitely hear more about him in the future. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MediNotTheBadGuy. Every little bit helps support the channel and keep it flowing as smoothly as it does. And if you want to help harness your own cursed speech, well, you can do so by buying a copy of Shimonetta, a boring world where the concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist at buyshimonetta.com.